Hello.
Hello, everyone.
We know that you see you because we used like this countdown to verify if anyone can see us and if the stream is enabled on all the platforms. So hello. Today we are going to talk about how to prepare a good homework assignment. We already discussed, I think last week, about like in general, if the homework assignments are hot or not. So if you are interested in homework assignments in general, we strongly suggest you to just watch our recent video about that. It's available on our YouTube profile. So please do that. And today we are going to say or discuss how to prepare a good homework assignment, good from the candidate perspective as well as from the perspective of the recruiters. So Tomasz, like if I would ask you right now to prepare a good homework assignment, how would you like to start? What would be the first like things you will focus on?
Okay, first of all, it's easy to prepare an assignment. It's much harder to figure out why are you making the assignment in the first place. So to be more precise, what are you actually trying to verify with the assignment? This is an example we see so often that during a recruitment process, you're asking your candidates some really tough algorithmic questions or whiteboard coding. And these are the type of assignments you give to people which don't really tell much about the candidate. And the same situation can happen with homework assignments. So the things that you give away to a candidate even before you meet them. So the first thing to ask yourself is, what are you trying to achieve? What kind of skills do you want to verify with this assignment? And this would have a tremendous impact on what kind of requirements you build into the assignment.
Okay, so let's say that we already did it. So is there like any like best solution or best way to approach that, or it depends basically on the use case, on your company? Like how do you see that?
Well, I'm a professional, so it always depends, right? So basically, it depends first of all on the position you're looking for. You're looking for candidates, and it depends on the company that recruits. From the job position perspective, if you're looking for like a general programmer to just do like a full stack or whatever, then what you're actually trying to verify is that the person is capable of developing some simple requirements, like adding some feature to an existing application or like new endpoint API, whatever. However, if you're looking for some very specific candidate with a very, very non-general, like very, very professional knowledge in some not very wide area, let's say performance or accessibility or whatever, then what you're trying to verify is this particular area that you're looking for in a candidate. Let's say you're looking for someone who is capable of, I don't know, modeling a domain, or you're looking for a candidate who is capable of doing some fine-tuning of garbage collection, or you're looking for, you get the idea. In this case, you have to be very precise in your requirements so that the candidate understands what we are expecting from the candidate, and this will have an impact on how you define these requirements.
So the most important stuff in terms of like preparing the homework assignment is to like clearly define what is the reason and what's the purpose of this particular homework assignment. Both because it helps both like candidate to understand what he or she should focus on during like resolving the task, and you as well, as you know, like what is your guideline and what should you keep during like creating this assignment. What are like the boundaries that you need to keep yourself like inside.
So just imagine you're back at school and your teacher, your English teacher or whatever, gives you an assignment to write an essay about some historical person or whatever. And it would be great if a teacher tells you precisely and very clearly that in this essay, what I'm really interested in is like whether the facts are going to be accurate, or whether the language is going to be beautiful and sentences are going to be long and like convoluted, or maybe
or
like
short,
vice versa.
maybe,
or short and sweet,
short,
right?
yeah.
So it's great when the teacher is so clear, because then you know what to focus on. Maybe the historical accuracy is not really important. Maybe it should be 1,000 words long and not shorter and not longer, and so on and so forth. And the same applies to a homework assignment. I can easily imagine a candidate who wants to show off with every single technology, every single stack, every single feature that he or she knows from a particular framework. And this is totally not what we are verifying. We don't even use that framework at work. So I don't care if you know every single feature of that framework and how clever you are in it.
Unless you want, and then it should be still like clearly stated in the requirement, like, hey, treat this like business requirements just as a showcase for the technology. And if you want to implement like a single feature in 10 different microservices using 10 different languages and deploy it on the Kubernetes, like, feel free, like it's what you want. But we still need to define clearly so the candidate will have some kind of a reference frame for like resolving the task. So that's the first thing. Like, if you want to prepare a good homework, please think about internally what you want to verify and what you want to achieve with this task, and please remember to share this information with the candidate, so he or she would know what to focus on and what you expect from the candidate.
Otherwise everyone is disappointed because the candidate wasted a lot of time and you got something that maybe it's good, maybe the homework is done really, really well, but it just doesn't tell you a lot about the candidate from the perspective that you're interested in.
Yeah, so the question is, for example, if there is just one good solution or way of sharing the information with the candidate, because I can imagine that I can write down in the README to the like task that the project or the application should be production ready, and then it depends on my approach if I'm going to like elaborate and describe what production ready means for me, or should I like leave it to the candidate and treat it also as a part of like a verification process. That, hey, let's check if the candidate what's the candidate understanding of being production ready. Okay, and I can see that, for example, for some candidates, the production ready is that the application contains some logs. For some candidates, there are also metrics. For some candidates, there is security, etc. Because it really depends. And it tells a lot about the candidate, how, like, why did the candidate understand the production ready or like maintainability of this particular application. So like still ensure that if you are like skipping some part of the description, that you are doing it intentionally and it's part of the thing that you want to verify, unless it will be just unclear for the candidate and maybe you don't want to be unclear in this particular area. Okay,
yeah, so in some cases you want to be vague, like by definition, because you want to see how the candidate works. Because, for example, for me, production ready actually means something different, like that the application is unit tested or integration tested, and the application is capable of handling failures. So these are like things that you didn't mention, and we didn't agree on that beforehand. But still, it tells something about us, and it tells a lot about the candidate, what he or she thinks. Unless you're not really interested in like such a broad view, you're just saying, I'm looking for a Django developer. Please write the simplest possible Django controller in Python, and please be aware of security issues. And then you know that the candidate is supposed to use this particular switch or this particular feature to avoid, I don't know, SQL injection, and that's it. Yeah, I mean that's all you need. Okay, and so assume that we started with like describing the like internal README for internal team, and then we prepared the description for the candidate, and let's say that we described some part of like the business problem, and what should we then do with the technical problem. So do you think that there is some like particular golden like rule for the difference
or splitting the difficulty between the business problem and the technical problem? So should we focus on some particular one? On like you'll probably tell it depends, but if it depends, then what are like the most important vectors to make such a decision?
If I get your question correctly, you're asking whether we should focus on like verifying that someone is a good programmer, irrespective to the domain, business, whatever, whether just a candidate is capable of implementing this particular feature using the following frameworks and the following algorithms.
Yeah, or maybe both.
Yeah, and the domain is absolutely unimportant. Like it's just testing whether you can use an editor and a compiler or an interpreter. And on the other hand, on the other side of the spectrum, you might want to make sure that a candidate is capable of understanding high-level business requirements and being able to model these requirements in like any methodology, like hexagonal, domain-driven design, whatever, just putting the requirements into code. And the code itself is not that important, but the modeling, the process of figuring out what are the classes, functions, modules, dependencies, that's the thing that we're interested in. And I hope it's clear from what I've already said that both of these two approaches are actually valid. But once again, and that's what we started with, that depends on what you're trying to verify. Are you looking for someone who's gonna talk to the business a lot, like a high-level programmer, if such a thing exists? Or you're looking for someone who just needs to implement a particular module without really realizing what's underneath and how it's going to be used. And like both of these features and both of these traits are actually important from the candidate's perspective and from the company's perspective. You just have to know who you are trying to recruit. And I've seen too many recruitment process where people weren't actually sure what kind of candidate are they looking for. So that's a good checkpoint for you as a company. Do you understand the role you're trying to fill in with a new candidate?
Okay, so let's assume that we described the internal requirements, we described the requirements for the candidate, and we described the challenge, so the task that candidate should resolve. So should we then just let the candidate to do everything from scratch with choosing the tools, setting up the frameworks, libraries, databases, etc., or should we start with some kind of a skeleton? Hey, dear candidate, here's a sample project, and you need to extend it. And of course, if we are going to verify if the candidate is pretty good at understanding the current code base, and then just extending the current code base, which is, for example, crucial for me, because if you start a greenfield project, it's a greenfield project for 1 day. And after during the second day, it's not a greenfield anymore. So for me, verifying if someone is able to implement a greenfield project makes totally no sense, because then I'm checking if someone is able to do the first day at work and only first day at work or first day of the new project. So if you are starting if you want to verify if someone is capable of working in a current existing code base, then starting with some kind of a skeleton with existing solution that candidates needs to understand and modify or extend, then of course it's better to start with something new. But do you think that it's valid, or if there are any particular use cases when it's worth to allow candidates starting from scratch solely, so nothing, no repository, no tools, and do your best?
Okay, so unfortunately, I agree with you. So I agree that having a project that already exists where the candidate can start from is a good idea for two reasons, or actually for multiple reasons. The biggest one is that the candidate has something to start with, so he don't have to he doesn't have to set up a new project, set up dependencies, build system, and so on, because that's just a waste of time. Also, as you perfectly laid out, a greenfield project is a greenfield project for 1 day, and it's great to start a new project and be allowed to choose all the technologies. However, after 2 days, a week, a month, or whatever, it's already a legacy project, and another developer kicks in and has to develop there. So we're not talking about giving 100,000 lines of code where a candidate has to spend multiple hours trying to figure out where to put his or her code. We're just talking about a sample project with a few classes or a few functions where the candidate can start. And it also tells a lot about the tool set of a candidate, whether the candidate is able to import the project into an IDE, build it, whether the developer setup is correct, whatever. The only solution I can think of where starting a new project as part of a homework is a good idea is when you explicitly ask candidates to choose a technology stack based on the requirements. So I can imagine a homework assignment where your task is to understand the requirements and then figure out whether, I don't know, Python is better than R because it's a machine learning assignment, or whether you're starting some high performance microservice and you need to figure out whether Go is better than Java. And in these cases, it's totally up to you to choose a whole technology stack from top to bottom. But this is not such a
question.
Yeah.
The question is if it should be like part of the let's say homework, because that's something that I can verify during recruitment. So, for example, ask the candidate, okay, so Tomek, if you would need to like implement a high performance microservice, what technology would you choose? And then I'm pretty sure that you won't tell Java or Golang, but you will start asking some questions. And basically what would be important for me is more the reasoning. So for example, saying that, okay, so if it's a like high performance microservice, but like core of this service won't change, but will change a lot, like some additional things that maybe it makes sense to like implement the core in very low level Java with off-heap technologies, etc., and still be able to use the same technology, or it's something that needs to integrate with operation system, like a lot of like networking stuff, and then, for example, Go would be a better one. So still, like, I'm not sure if like using the like greenfield project for the candidate means a lot. And to be honest, there is like a lot of like religion behind the tools. And for example, I believe that, for example, if someone will be like applying to DevSkiller, then they will be afraid of using Gradle if they know us, and that's something that is a problem. And also, like, do I want to verify what technologies would the candidate choose, or do I want to ensure that the candidate is able to start working from day one in my project and in my tool set and all the stack that we have? And,
you mentioned something really, really important, because when you're preparing a skeleton or like some starter project for a candidate, I'm pretty sure you're going to choose the tools that you're using on a daily basis at work. So you're going to choose the same language, the same build system, the same frameworks, and so on. And this has two benefits. First of all, you have experience in all these tools. So once you get the response from the candidate, once you get the solution, you are like fully equipped and fully experienced to evaluate that solution. But secondly, you are also kind of advertising what kind of technology stack are we using at our company. So what you should expect. If you are sending someone a homework assignment with Java 5, then the candidate knows that there's probably something wrong with that company. If you're sending someone a homework assignment written in Rust, then even though there was nothing about Rust in the job advertisements, then that's another red flag that there's some mismatch in between them. And there's yet another thing that we should definitely take into account when creating a sample project, and this is the verification process. If you don't provide any starter project, then the candidate will basically create something out of thin air, and you have no idea what's going to be the structure, what's going to be the API, what kind of classes, functions, etc. you should expect, unless you specified explicitly in the assignment. But if you specified like API that the candidate is supposed to implement in the assignment, you could just as well give this API as code. And this has a great benefit from the verification perspective. Please follow along. Why is it important?
Yeah, so basically the question is, what do you want to do after receiving the project from the candidate? Because like when designing a homework assignment, it's good to like think in advance how I'm going to verify and how I'm going to assess this one. And if you want to run the application, if you want to test the application, if you want to build the application, or you just want to review the code and give a candidate a code review. And if you are going to run the application, then how the candidate should prepare this application? Should the candidate provide you with a Docker file that will allow you to just simple Docker run the application, or is it something that you want to I don't know, get involved in your CI or Jenkins tools that you will add the repository shared by the candidate and just execute the build script? And if you're going to execute the build script, then one more time, if you don't have any frame for the candidate, even if it's build a script or something like this, then it's a problem, because it's hard for you to automate this assessment process. And also, even if you're able to verify the assessment process, it doesn't tell a lot about how you're going to assess this task. Because, for example, I always prefer to start assessing the candidate solution with some automated stuff. Because if candidate is providing me with a project that is even not compiling, then it tells me a lot about the person. It's someone who shared, even didn't bother to compile the project and shared it with me. So I can be pretty confident that the candidate will do the same as a developer in my team, and the master branch will be always red, because the candidate don't want to build it locally. So the build in Jenkins, if I'm not using pull requests, will be always red. So it's a red flag for me, for example. So I would prefer to start with an automated way. The question is, what should we automate? Because we can automate just execution of the project provided by the candidate. The question is, for example, if we should limit ourselves in the verification to the tests that are written by the candidate or provided by us in the skeleton project for the candidate, or should we add something more to this project? So, for example, test some edge cases, test how the candidate is for example, handling failures. So if there is some exception thrown in your face, or there is some nice I don't know, HTML I don't know, code showing that the article that you try to read does not exist, instead of null pointer 500 or something like this. So what do you think? Of course, with the Scratch project or the Greenfield project, it's very hard to automate the tools. It's still possible with some frame of reference, you will describe that the application should run on port 8080 and expose the REST API with such description on some port. But it's pretty hard to do that, and hard to verify the code, quality, etc. So do you think that we should verify more than we allow the candidate to automatically verify, or should we limit ourselves to the tests that are exposed to the candidate?
You actually mentioned a few things that I also wanted to mention. So when you're giving a sample project, then you have a possibility of creating some automated tests, because you know how this project looks like, which is great. So that's one of the advantages of a sample project rather than starting from scratch. Now the question is, how do you write these tests? So one approach is to write a couple of tests that are verifying that the solution works, and just provide them to a candidate. And in this case, it's great because the candidate knows exactly what to expect. And you can even write in the requirements that your task is to have a minimal possible implementation that makes the tests pass and makes them green. And that's it. It's like the philosophy of TDD, right? So that's one thing. On the other hand, you might not give a candidate any tests at all. You just say that these are the requirements, please make sure to implement them, and you say nothing about the tests. But in this case, the candidate has absolutely no confidence that even the happy path is covered. So I would say that in the majority of cases, the mix of these two approaches is correct. So you give a candidate a few test cases, which are supposed to be green and that they are red in the beginning. So a candidate knows that that the project is broken and there is some progress. He or she sees some progress because the tests are becoming green, which is, by the way, really enjoyable. And I've seen many people who are actually really happy with such a task. However, and that's one of the assignment rules that I would lay out here. It's equally important to verify that a candidate also thought about edge cases, especially edge cases that we somehow gave a clue in the requirements. So, for example, we only have tests for happy path, but in the requirements we explicitly mentioned that the system is supposed to be supposed to handle timeouts, or when an exception occurs, there is supposed to be some different response, whatever. And we deliberately don't test these special requirements in the tests that are visible for a candidate, because we want to make sure that the candidate not only did the absolute minimum, which is making the tests pass, but also read the requirements and added the features that were not tested automatically. And it's absolutely great if a candidate actually added missing tests as well. So when there was a requirement to, apply a timeout to your code, a candidate actually added his or her own test that verifies a timeout on top of the test that we already have, but we didn't showcase to a candidate. So this tells you how proactive is the candidate.
I would just point here that it really depends, and your expectations should depend on the experience of the candidate, because that's something that I'm definitely expecting from a senior developer. But I know from my experience that expecting from junior developer was a mistake. I did it many times, even at the very beginning. DevSkiller tests for juniors also contained some edge cases tests, and it was a mistake, because for junior developers you shouldn't do that. And even if you do that, that should be maybe 10% of the score for the task, not 90 as it happened in many use cases, because all the edge cases and all the failure handling, etc., is something that you can it from your experience. And if you don't have any experience, it's really hard for you to guess what can go wrong into this particular use case, what should you focus on, how should you handle the failure, etc., because you don't have this experience that you can base on. So you are not well grounded in these edge cases and hard situations. So please ensure that the number of edge cases verified and the things that you are looking for in the code really depends on the experience of the candidate. It should be different for juniors, different for mid developers, and different for seniors. And if you're looking someone for the tech lead position or team lead position, then the structure of the code and discussion based on the code and discussion based on why did you choose this particular solution is also a very important part of this homework. So Tomasz, if you try to just sum up all what we said from the very beginning, so just to provide us how to prepare a good homework assignment in a nutshell.
All right, so first of all, time box the homework, so suggest how much time it should take. Also be very, very precise in the requirements, and the requirements should be based on what you are actually looking for, what kind of skills are you looking for. Most of the time, it's much better to provide a sample project, so some code where the candidate can start from rather than starting from scratch. So you give some sample repository for a candidate. This allows you to run some automated tests on top of the solution, like whether the solution works, but also, which we haven't covered, run some code quality checks or code style checks or whatever. So everything that you can automate rather than spending time with your engineers. Also, the sample project tells a lot about your stack, the one that you're using in your company. Regarding the automated tests, it depends on the number of them, and whether they should be visible to a candidate or not depends on the seniority of the position you're you're looking for. So for juniors, most of the time you want to give them the tests so that they have a clear guidance what they are expected from. So essentially, you're asking them to implement the code in any way so that the tests are green. For a senior position, you are giving very little automated tests to a candidate, but you have your own tests on your side, which are like secret, because they are verifying that a candidate actually understood the requirements very, very precisely. I think I covered everything. Did I forget about something?
No, I think that you covered everything. Just like at the very end, we talked a little bit about the stack that you use in your company. So should you allow the candidate to choose the stack, or should you give the stack to the candidate? And also, Tomasz told you the stack that you are using in a homework tells a lot about your company. And I think, Tomasz, that next week we can talk about the stack. So how to expose the stack to the candidate, how to advertise the stack, how to maybe not advertise it, but expose to the candidate your stack is pretty shitty. And I think that that's what we can cover next Thursday. So if you are interested in sharing the stack with the candidate and sharing some maybe even the technical culture of your company, please join us next week. And that's all for today. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Great. Thanks. Bye.